across the channel to Britain because every plane was considered an enemy. They'd been bombed so long, and so we landed in Paris. Well, one night in Paris. So I happened to be going to one of the big buildings there, and I looked up and I saw a Risman, a guy that was in the cadets in Santa Maria with us. He was a big football player. We played football, touch football, but he was a big football player, and he had an awful foot. He would kick that ball. I saw it, and he was a second lieutenant yet. Here we are, captains and all. Risman, what the devil are you doing here? He goofed off, So what he was doing, they had him flying Dakotas, transport planes, in and out of Paris. I said, "You still a second lieutenant?" He said, "I'll never get out of this." So we asked him. He said, "I've been flying here all the time." He said, "Where should we got one night in Paris? Where should we go?" And he says, "Well, there's an American that stayed over here from the First World War, and he has a bar down there, and he'll tell you where to go." So we went. Julio and I went there, and we were sitting there waiting for. We were sitting at the counter having a bar, having a drink, and there wasn't anybody in there going. And in comes the door opens, and in comes there's about 4 or 5 Indians. All we thought they were Indians, tough looking guys. Oh gee, they looked like they come out of the gutter, so, with the uniforms on.
What were you wearing?
We had a Class A
Class A's
uniform. Yeah,
on.
we were going back.
They
They were off in the battlefront, and I looked, and there's Frank Matus, the 4th guy coming in was Frank Matus, semi-relation to me.
Yeah.
He's the guy I went back to Naples to see before the invasion, and he was telling me. I said, "What in the blazes are you doing here?" And he says, "Boy, we were up at the the Rhine River." And he says, "We were getting our socks knocked off." He says, "So we got this darn fool plane to come and drop a couple flares for us. Then we really clobbered them." He says, "We got across the Rhine. Our CO says, go to Paris for a couple of days." And I says, "Well, you know who that was dropping the flares?" And he said, "No," says, "that was us." So we proceeded to have a drink or two on that. I'm not too proud of what the rest of the evening went like.
They were bogged down on the Rhine, and they were getting hammered by the Germans, right?
Oh gosh.
And the Germans sort of knew where the Allies were, but the Allies couldn't tell. The Germans were moving their guns, right?
Yes.
And so they never got to see them, and that's why the flares sort of were Frank Matas was.
They bring their guns up at night, see, and our guys couldn't see them enough, but then they get shooting and back off. And what happened? They had to see the flares when they're bringing them up, and then they let them have it. See, they finally got across it.
That's a tough place to be. So for the record, you say you saw him, or did? Was this the time when he heard your voice and he goes, "Stadio, is that you?"
No.
Was that somebody else?
That was the same guy, but it was a different situation. That was in Naples.
That was in Naples.
Another day I wasn't too proud about.
Frank Matas got you in trouble, huh?
No, I think I might have got him in. Oh, we almost got in trouble. What happened on that? I asked. We knew we were staging for invasion of southern France, and I knew that Frank was. He'd been all through Africa, and I've been trying to contact him all the time. 36 engineers, combat engineers. They were attached to different armies. And I knew we were flying over him all the time, but I never got to see him, never got any contact at all. So I tried to find out where they were staging, and we were in Corsica. So I asked the CO, "Can I take a plane back to Naples?" Because I had heard that the 5th Army was staging in that area. I took the plane back to Naples, flew back there, and landed at Migliano, which I was acquainted with. And I started asking Army personnel if they ever heard of 36 combat engineers. "Oh yeah, they're attached to 5th Army." "Where are they?" well, I don't know, they're someplace up here. So I walked at least 5 miles back, and I finally found him. And when I found him, he was in a pup tent in the dust. He was sitting there cleaning the rifle like this here. And I hollered at him, and he says, Daniel, is that you? And I said, yeah, that's me. So he went to, I said, well, can you get off for a while? He said, we're staging for invasion of southern France. And I asked his CO, who was a second lieutenant. It was the fifth one he had. All the rest of them were killed. The CO says he's one of the, I got about 3 or 4 guys left that were all through Africa, and he's one of them. He says, hey, he gave us a Jeep. So we drove the Jeep back into Naples. Now here's where the fun begins. In the meantime, we found a bar or two and stopped to have a appetizer. And then I found the officers' club. Well, I'm a captain, and old Frank is a buck sergeant.
Yeah.
So we go and I'm taking them in the officers' club. Well, these guys are all ground echelon that are back behind the lines and ties and correct Class A uniforms. And so the guys told me, you can't take him in there. So by that time we'd had a couple of drinks. And Frank was a fighter. Oh, he fighted a drum with that.
Big guy.
Yeah, well, he wasn't so big, but you could hit him with a hammer on the head. You couldn't hurt him. And Frank, I said, well, that's my friend. I'm bringing him in. No, he can't do that. Well, Frank's ready to go. I said, well, I'm bringing him in here. He's been through combat all the way. I don't care. They don't care. They're ground echelon. Well, Frank was getting ready to fight, and I was trying to calm him down. And then they brought a general over. He says, you guys better go. Well, we finally got out of there. Frank was going to fight everybody. And I finally went back, and the next time I saw him was in Paris.
Did you knew some Hungarian growing up in your family? Did you ever have occasion when you were over here to use any of that knowledge of the language?
No, I didn't know Hungarian, but Slavish, I understood Slavish, but I couldn't talk it very well. Folks talked Slavish to us, and we'd answer in English.
Mm.
So as far as conversing in Slavish, I couldn't do it very good, but I could understand.
Did that ever help you in Slavish is influenced by Romance, isn't it? And
well, it did with it when we had that Russian kid with us. He was from Slav part of Russia.
Oh, okay. So, okay, well, that's a good lead into that story, because I actually haven't heard the story. Eric says you just told it this morning. I'd like to get that one on tape about your Slovakian Russian friend here.
In southern France, when we were there chasing the Germans, of course the Germans were going pretty fast, we found out there was a couple of young guys came to us. One was a big, healthy kid, but he was young. About maybe 17, 18 years old. And yet, they were both Russian. And what we found out, he was from the Slav part of Russia, and I could understand some of his words that he was talking about. So because I understood him, he picked me out as somebody he could communicate with. I found out his family was all killed by the Russians. And he was taken as slave labor when he was about 12 years old. So he'd been with the Russian army, or the German army for about 4 years, all through a lot of stuff. And both kids were slaves. They actually acted on it. And when were chasing them, and we were pretty close to lines all the time. When we were chasing them, they weren't going to take these slaves' kids with them. They were going to slaughter them. So these kids heard about it. They listened to them talking, and they could interpret enough language. You knew that they were done. So they managed to escape. Both of them escaped. And then they came to us. And he masqueraded by working for the Italians in the fields, in the hay fields, saying he was Italian, because they could talk 3 or 4 different languages, enough so they could kind of get by.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so he was doing that, and in the meantime, I found this out later. He came to us, and we fed him, and he picked on me because I could understand this Slav talking, and he thought we were all Americans were all rich. We owned our own airplane. That was our airplane that we were flying, and he wanted me to fly it back to Russia. He wanted Kharkov, the region he was from. I didn't know I can't do that. Oh yeah, you can. You got everything. So back and forth we were talking, and I asked him, well, how long you worked for a pair of shoes? He said, 6 months sometimes to get enough money to buy a pair of shoes. I said, and then we were kind of comparing notes, and I said, we get a pair of shoes probably 3 or 4 days later. Oh, Well, we found out that these two they disappear at night. And he come back the next day and showed us what he was doing. They were going into the trenches, and the Germans had slitting the Germans' throats secretly, and then they'd get out there. Well, they caught the one kid, and they killed him. He came back and said they caught him. He got a couple the night before. But then when we moved on, I don't know what happened to him. It's quite a story, because a kid taken from home, and he's seen his whole family slaughtered.
Yeah.
What he told me was that they would take, if they were, Germans would get terribly cruel. What they do is, some of the people that they hated very much, they tie the plane, the person to the prop on the plane, and start the plane. And this is the person would disintegrate, And he saw that happen time and again, just because they hated the Russians so much. So his whole family was killed. But he wanted to go back to his area, because Germans are different. But it was pretty hard stories. We thought we saw some bad things, but they really saw bad things.
Yeah. I don't know this story either, that you had a French friend. Who's this guy?
Oh, when we were from Migliano flying, we flew a lot of patrols around Naples, bombers. First, we hit Naples, and the Germans would hit Naples, because it was a shipping center. It was bombed all to pieces. Every now and then they'd call us to fly a night, what they call a searchlight mission, and they practice their searchlights on us when it was a quiet night coming up. They ask us to fly up to 10, 12,000, and they could train their searchlights on, train their kids while following around. There was no contact between these searchlight missions and our headquarters. So we said, yeah, once you flew them, you just dropped your seat, put it down, and stayed in the cockpit, because you couldn't see anything. You can imagine those searchlights were very strong. Well, I had a couple of them. I didn't care for them at all, because they had free French down there. Again, they wanted
Never know what they're going to do.
They didn't know what they were going to do. So one night, Iribe, he was a Frenchman, he just joined their squadron, so he got the mission. Everybody passed it on to him. And he was up there, and he actually got up there, and they opened fire on him. And he was swearing in French, and he says, "Here, I'll turn my lights on for you." Guys, he called him a couple of names, and in the meantime, he peeled off how they got out of there, and came to back, and it wasn't only very long. I don't know what happened. He left the squadron, so that was all we knew. He was a wild guy.
Well, you told us about getting your points over right after you dropped those flares. Pretty much when you guys were done. Right after that, and you went home, and you were assigned to train in the new night fighter.
No, this was just trying. What we were, we went through, had a rest at Florida, and then were assigned to the West Coast.
Right.
And we weren't assigned to a night fighter. We were assigned to a training squadron in Douglas, Arizona, where we were veteran pilots training brand new second lieutenants in B-25s.
Oh.
And they were wonderful plane to fly and to train in. Very stable, and you could fly them very good. In fact, we practiced complete single engine landings with feathered, but we had a lot of flat land in Bisbee, Arizona. So. But we didn't like it. Gamble and I. And the CO there was a West Point man who never made it out of the States, and he hated anybody that came back from States and had a couple of ribbons or been in combat. He kind of goofed off, and that's what they did. Everybody had goofed off. Instead of kicking them out or putting them back where they belong, they'd put on the stairs, you know, some desk job. And so that's what he was at. Of course, he was from West Point, which none of us were, so he got to be the CO there. Well, he hated everybody who came back from overseas. And of course, we weren't too happy with him either, and he outranked us a little bit, but not much. And we kind of didn't care for him. And so Gamble, another captain, we saw him there. And he and I grabbed a B-25 and flew to Fresno, California, which was way across the mountains. We never told anybody we were going. And so we went to Fresno because the night fighter were their base there. And we wanted to go see, we knew Colonel Banks, but he was a brigadier general then. So we knew him because he was with the 414 Squadron. And we knew him. He was an all reckless guy. He was a real good, nice guy. And I was trying to get me to shut up. Cut it off. Anyway, we went in the, I went into the lady at the desk, lady taking care of the office. She was a non-commissioned person in the service. And I said, "Can we see Colonel Banks?" "Oh, no, you can't see him. He's got appointments up to here." I said, "Well, we came all the way from Bisbee, Arizona. We want to see him." And he happened to hear my voice. You know how my voice carries. He happened to hear me. He said, "Daniel, is that you out there?" Well, I didn't even know he knew me very much because I didn't know him that well. He says, "Get in here." And so Gamble and I went in there. And, "Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir." "Oh, forget that." He said, "What are you guys doing?" "We're in training command over in Douglas area." "What are you doing over there?" I said, "Well, they got us stuck over there, and we can't get we want to get back in the night fighters." He said, "I don't know." He said, "I'll have to send orders right through Washington." He couldn't see it was a different Air Force.
Yeah.
And he had to go through Washington, cut orders. So we went back to Bisbee. He said, "I'll see what I can do." We went back to Bisbee, Arizona, and this guy found out we had taken the plane. Oh, man. He gave us all the dirty jobs we could, the officer of the day, and everything you could pile on us. And we were destined to be there quite a long while and not in best graces. Well, a week later, we looked in our mailbox and in comes orders from Washington, D.C. So we went up to him. He said, "You never get out of here. Out of my dead body, you will get over here." And we showed him to him. "We're going, Colonel." It was a light colonel, you know. We're going to Fresno. So Gamble and I took off. By the way, Gamble stayed in the service, made a 3-star general.
Wow.
And so he was pretty got up and pretty rank, a good rank. And in fact, when we went to Fresno, we couldn't find any housing, so we rented overnight cabins, and we had it opened up so we had 2 rooms, and we lived there for quite let's say a month. So we could find a room. And Marcia, our daughter, is named after his wife, Marcia.
Hmm.
His son, he was an old Army brat. His dad had been in the Army, and he stayed in and he made 3-star general. His son just retired as a 4-star general.
Wow.
So his one son, his other son's a colonel in, he was in Washington, D.C., so they're Army true and true.
Yeah. It was in Fresno that you were flying the P-61 Black Widows and instructing in those. How long were you out in Fresno?
Well, let's see, we arrived there in probably about I would guess about March, and we were there for quite a while. We were doing all kinds of duties there. And one time I got a letter in my mailbox. You're assigned to Hammerfield. Where the heck is Hammerfield? And you're base commander Hammerfield, very, very secret. So we looked up. Hammerfield was outside of San Francisco, and that's when they had the first meeting of the not the League of Nations, the United Nations. They had the meeting there, and they had day fighters there and night fighters there. And I don't know why I was picked to be the CO, but it was just a base, and very, very secret. Couldn't tell anybody where we were at, and anything else. And we flew missions there to intercept off planes coming in with IFF turned off, and we flew, and then day fighters they went up, and then they had spotters up in the mountains with visible spotters. And one night I scrambled. Our planes are on the ramp, and every so often the crew chief would get in and warm them up, because we couldn't. Once we got a scramble, we had to be in the air in a minute's time. After 3 minutes time, they gave us 3 minutes time, because they wanted us up in the air, and the crew chiefs would keep them about every half hour they'd warm it up, and so we get a scramble. I got a scramble one night, and he says we were chasing balloons too. They remember the Japs were sending balloons.